Hi, my name is Andrea, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I am loving right now to teach Spanish to my two kids. Now, we have kind of a unique situation. We live all over the world due to my husband's job, and we have lived in a Spanish-speaking country. So for 3 years, we lived in Bogota, Colombia, when my son was 3, 4, and 5 years old. So he actually got a pretty decent grounding in Spanish. Unfortunately, my daughter was so much younger and she was just barely turning 3 when we left. And so with her, I'm kind of just having to start at a very basic level, basically no Spanish at all. She kind of understands more than she realizes, but she cannot speak Spanish really at all. So this is what we are using to study Spanish every day. I will also say that we are classical homeschoolers, and I pretty much follow the Charlotte Mason method of homeschooling. As I learn more about Charlotte Mason, I'm incorporating more of her philosophies into how we run our homeschool. I am, of course, publicly educated, and so I am also filling in the holes and the gaps of my own education as we go. So I'm doing this incredibly imperfectly, but I am doing my best here. What we do focus on every single day in our homeschool is Spanish. So I'm going to show you some things that I feel are super helpful and what is really good for a teacher who doesn't speak Spanish themselves. Okay, so these are in no particular order. Something that is fun to build vocabulary is, of course, bingo. I just made this on Canva, and this is to go over numbers and colors. So I'll just say a number or color in Spanish, and then they mark it. They have to find it on their bingo card. Later on, we progress to other words that we're working on that we might have learned in a story or a lesson. So it's just a fun game that we'll use to kill a few minutes, and it reinforces the vocabulary that we're working on. I started to try to learn Latin on my own a couple of years ago now, my goodness. When I was first kind of understanding about classical education, realizing that my kids were definitely going to be focusing a lot on Latin, I wanted to get a grounding in it since I had zero. So I got this Getting Started with Latin book. And as I've done the whole thing, and as I was going through it, I was just thinking, I wish this is how I learned Spanish. It would have been so much easier. And lo and behold, they have a Getting Started with Spanish. So I have just as much been loving this, even though I'm probably at like an intermediate level of Spanish myself. I have loved going through Getting Started with Spanish because this honestly is how I should have learned it from the get-go. So I've been using this a lot with my daughter and my son. My son speaks Spanish pretty well, but this is great to kind of get the basics of grammar so that he kind of understands even more. And my daughter is 6 right now. She's in 1st grade, and she's been doing really well with it as well. So, I mean, it starts out, lesson 1 are articles. So the, a, and, those are articles. What are those in Espanol is the second lesson. You know, we're learning about el and la and un and una, and the difference between masculine and feminine, how to discern which noun is masculine or feminine. And it's just so gradual and easy, yet you don't realize how much you're really building up as each lesson progresses. So, and each lesson is so short and sweet, and it makes it very painless for kids and adults alike. I typically might go through 2 lessons each day since kind of working with a little bit of an understanding of Spanish, but I absolutely am loving this Getting Started with Spanish to start from the very beginning, day 1 with teaching Spanish. Typically we'll do this either in the morning or during our lunch hour. I'll do a lesson, and then I'll usually read a story, and oftentimes I'll read the same story over and over for like a week straight until they can basically say it back to me. That's, you know, that you're doing good if they're basically saying the story back to you and they're like, we know. So the ones that I love to use when we're first just getting started are the same that you use when you're first learning how to read. These graded books. So this is Mi Primer Libro, like my first book. And so they're super, super easy vocabulary, easy to understand. And what's great about this is you, as the teacher, if you don't know Spanish, I mean, there's not many words that you need to look up and understand before you get started. And typically these also are just translations of the Biscuit books that your kids might already be familiar with. So one little hack that I like to do is I find books that my kids probably already know and they're already familiar with. So I use these a lot because we have these in English. Also, we love Goodnight Moon. They can tell you Goodnight Moon in English memorized. And so it's wonderful to then do it in Spanish because they, even though they might not know those exact words, they understand what we're speaking about. And so then if you read this, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, then they know that this is a casita, or they know that this is a, those gatitos. And so I was reading this the other day to my daughter, and we were saying, buenas noches, globo rojo, and she's pointing at it as I'm saying it. And so I thought that that was just a really good sign of understanding. Another thing that we love to use for Spanish is another book that will be familiar. But what I really love to find are books that have a mix of Spanish and English in it. So this is one of my favorites. This is Abuelo and the Three Bears. So as you can see, it's just translating Grandpa and the Three Bears. So one side of this is mostly English with a little bit of Spanish intermixed with it. So, Abuelo, you're joking, laughed Emilio. Bears don't like beans. Well, all the bears I know like frijoles, said Abuelo. So we know he's talking about beans. Abuelo calls them frijoles. And so, beans are frijoles, got it. But it's not just so incomprehensible to somebody who doesn't speak Spanish. So this is a great kind of gradual way to work in some vocabulary. And then after you get a good lock on this, you can flip it over and it's all in Spanish. So now it's Abuelo y los tres ojos. Stories are so important when you're teaching a language at all to your kids, but I like to have the mix of some solid lessons with some stories that reinforce it. You can also, something that I do just on my own is if you're learning vocabulary in a lesson, make sure that you use that vocabulary just in everyday life. So we've learned that girl is niña and boy is niño. So now I'll refer to the niña over there, or the niño over there. Do you see the niño over there with the red hat? That's something that you can do even if you don't truly speak Spanish. We're just trying to get vocabulary into them and the basics of the language, the grammar, and everything will go from there. You have plenty of time, and this is just a really fun way to learn language together as a family. So Spanish is definitely something that we do pretty much every day. I work on it independently as well. I made a short about this recently, but I have been loving doing my daily Bible readings in Spanish. I certainly don't understand most of it, but I got a Bible. Here, let me get it. The Bible that I'm using for my daily reading is basically Spanish on one side, English on the other. So it's really easy. I don't have to look up every single word, but the vocabulary is just so much deeper than what I'm used to that it's just so much more enjoyable, and it's a really wonderful challenge. And, I'm learning words about wisdom and the Almighty and creation, and it's a lot better than just, your basic Spanish paragraphs that you need to translate that really are nonsensical. So I have been enjoying this. It's really kind of taken my Spanish game up a level. And so really you could do this with any book that you're familiar with. I do the read the Bible in a year plan every year. So at this point I'm pretty familiar with it. And so then to do it in a different language, it makes it a lot easier than something that I'm just picking up and seeing for the first time. One example is my son read Charlotte's Web this year. I now have it in Spanish as well. So he's going to kind of pick through that and work on developing his Spanish by reading something in Spanish that he's already read in English. I hope this was helpful. I'll have a lot more tips about language learning. That's something that we focus on a lot, not just Spanish. I'm doing Spanish with both kids and myself. My son, who is in 3rd grade right now, he's also doing Latin, which, oh my goodness, knowing some Spanish has been so helpful, learning Latin, and the grammar is actually pretty complementary, and a lot of the words are complementary. So they've really been going hand in hand. And so we've been enjoying that together as well. So we focus a lot on language learning. And so that's what a lot of our content will be about here. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you subscribe to our channel, and I will see you soon.